Hello everyone, welcome to Gnandeep Academy. So this is our daily answer writing series for geography optional. So on a daily basis, we take up one question on a decided topic and we discuss it thoroughly and we try to understand how we are supposed to approach answer writing for geography optional. Along with that, we also learn new topics as well as we understand how we can improve on our notes. So here I have one question from population and settlement topic of paper 1. Now similar type of question can also be asked in paper 2 as well, so let there be no confusion about it. So this question pertains to a topic called as social capital, right? So there is a topic called as population as a social capital, and I have a fairly basic question where we are just trying to understand what this population as a social capital is along with suitable examples. So we have to evaluate the concept of population as a social capital along with suitable examples, fine. So very basic question, but there is going to be a problem when you write answer for this particular question because you might miss on some keywords and you may not completely address the requirements of the question. So first and foremost, let us understand what can be written in introduction. So I have two ways to go forward to introduction. Either I can define what social capital is, that is a pretty basic approach or a standard approach, you can say, where we write definitions. Other than that, we can also quote some contemporary example which reflects the importance of social capital in our society, right? So there are these two approaches. You can take either of these. If you take contemporary example as in your introduction, then you will have to again define social capital. I am not likely to exercise this particular option, is that of contemporary example, for a very simple reason, because if I explain social capital throughout my answer, I am anyway going to put n number of examples. So with every argument, I am supposed to give an example. So here in question itself, question is demanding that we have to provide suitable examples, fine. And that is why what I'll prefer to go with the definition based approach. So I'll define simply what this social capital is, fine. So do refer to our notes. There you will find the definitions for social capital and a thorough understanding on what exactly this social capital means. Now to give you a brief idea on what social capital is, so we as a society, so we are not a burden on the resources available in and our surrounding, but we are an asset. We as people or whole of the population can be considered as an asset for any nation or for any country, because once we come together, we can create many things. We can use these resources and improve our economic as well as social standards. So that kind of idea we have to understand when it comes to social capital. So I have briefly introduced what this social capital is. Now, when we consider population as a social capital, there are three types of social capital we have to address here. One is bridging capital. You'll have to explain what this bridging capital is. Along with that, also provide examples here. Then I have something called as bonding capital. Same approach, explain and provide example. So in this particular part, you will be giving details on as to what this social capital is. Now I will go back to the keyword, and that keyword is saying that we have to evaluate population as a social capital. And whenever we evaluate any particular concept, we have to bring out the importance, or first we have to bring out the meaning, but most importantly, we have to bring out the importance of that particular concept, right? So when I'm talking about social capital, I have talked about three various types of social capital, but along with that, as I have provided examples, in some or the other way, I will be highlighting its importance as well. So indirectly, I have already highlighted the importance of this social capital as a concept. Now, I'll not stop there. I'll give some examples, some more examples and more case studies, because question is directly expecting you to write suitable examples. Now, here I have a couple of case studies. Again, we have to prepare these type of case studies. If we have any concept in our syllabus, try to find relatable case studies on that as well as relatable examples on that. Now, this is not a one-day process. You'll not get all these things in a day. This is a very long process. You'll have to endure for that particular period. You will have to, on a daily basis, skim through newspaper and try to understand what can be used as a value addition material for your optional subject as well as GS subject. And that is how you are going to collect all these case studies and examples. So here, for population as a social capital, I have used this particular case study that we have Indian farmers, and we can use this particular concept that Indian farmers can be our social capital, and this social capital of Indian farmers can be used to help themselves with the help of farmers group, right? So whenever we talk about social capital, what we are talking, let's talk about bridging capital, right? Or let's say talk about bonding capital. What bonding capital would say? Bonding capital would say that we are a group, and when we are a group, we can improve or we can support each other and make everyone's life better. So when I have farmers group, right? So that farmer group can help each other, and once these farmers group can help each other, they can reduce the psychological state as stress, as well as if I come up with something called as farmers producers organization or self-help group. Now, when it comes to self-help groups or farmer producers organization, it is a classic example of social capital, because people are coming together, and as people come together, they are creating assets, right? So once we have these type of self-help groups for various causes, it will definitely help us for that particular cause. And if I have a particular farmers organization which is directed towards reducing suicide among farmers, that will be a case of social capital or population as a social capital. So this is one case study I have provided. You can write it in a various other ways also. You can also talk about how income of farmers can be increased, so on and so forth. Other case study I have, which is a pretty common case study, that is of migrants, right? So once we have the start of migration, this migration perpetuates further migration, right? So if you have someone who is already residing somewhere else, what will happen? That particular person will help you out, and it will help you migrate to that particular place and alleviate the condition or quality of your life. And that is how migration acts as a social capital, or migrants act as a social capital. And when migrants act as a social capital, we make sure that rather we experience there is a faster economic growth. So that is how you are supposed to explain on the first part, because we have to evaluate. So we have to understand or highlight the importance of this particular concept. But in the later part, once we say evaluate, right? So evaluation is never only positive. So if you see, I have also then mentioned some negative aspects or some concerns when it comes to the idea of social capital. Sometimes what happens, these ideas of social capital may become exclusionary. Now, when I say social capital may become exclusionary, let us take example that caste can also be considered as a social capital. Though we have very negative connotation to the idea of caste in India or all across the globe, this particular group of people can help out each other and bring out better development as well. So in that way, you can consider caste as a social capital. But what happens when we have caste-based groupings? These caste-based groupings result into exclusion of others. Or similarly, if we have religion-based grouping, right, it may prove to be a social capital, but it then may also prove to be an exclusionary event, right? So similarly, I have one more problem when it comes to considering population as a social capital. When people come together, they end up restricting individual identities or individual freedom, right? So that is also one more problem. So there are many problems when it comes to population as a, or considering population as a social capital, but these are few examples you will have to put when it comes to evaluation of the concept of social capital. So that was about the evaluation part. Now I will move on to conclusion. Now when it comes to social, the idea of social capital itself is a very positive idea, though there are some negative connotations to it, negative incidences to that particular idea, but that doesn't make whole of the idea as a negative one. So why and how needs to be explained, right? So why and how of what? The desirability of social capital. You'll have to say why we need social capital, and you can say how we can improve social capital in India and all across the globe. So that can be the line of my conclusion. So there are many other ways in which you can conclude, but I am trying to, since I have talked about negative impacts here, so I'll make a certain positive tone at the end of the answer, and that is why I'm going towards why and how this social capital is needed and how this social capital can be improved. So these are some of the issues you can address when it comes to the idea of social capital. So we'll come up with one more question in our next session. Thank you everyone.